Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about what would happen if Deku was the Black Panther. But before we get into today's video, ladies and gentlemen, obviously this is going to be a multi-part series, and for you guys to unlock part 2, I'm going to be needing at least 1,500 likes. Once you guys smash that like goal, I'll be sure to drop part 2. But with all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So this specific what if story, we're actually not going to be starting off in the perspective of a young Izuku. Rather, we're actually going to start everything off the day that Izuku's parents meet. In this specific timeline, T'Challa is actually going to be the father of Izuku, and Mirko is going to be his mother. Now, the reason for that is that if Inko and T'Challa were the parents of Izuku, he would practically be quirkless until one day he might get the powers of the Black Panther. And or I could have also just gone with Izuku getting some sort of Panther quirk from his father Hiashi, but I thought that this would probably be a much cooler approach and something that I don't usually do when it comes to taking other characters in the universe and making them part of the story that I usually tell. So this time around, I figured using Mirko's bunny quirk to give that to Izuku and have him inherit a quirk of some sort on top of the powers of the Black Panther, that would have just made for a really cool character. Plus, imagine Izuku with Mirko's personality and the Black Panther suit. I feel like that would be just such a cool combination, and I just fell in love with the idea the second that I came up with it. I did have some help from Shoto Aizawa. Some of you guys might know him. He made a couple of what ifs back in the day, and they're honestly incredible. But yeah, like I said, Izuku's going to be the son of T'Challa and Mirko, and this is going to be having some pretty big implications. But you guys might be wondering, how in the world is T'Challa's Deku's dad? Well, let me explain. The way that this is all going to be working is because in the original story, T'Challa had the powers of the Black Panther before he actually became king. We're going to be using that same thing in a little bit of story bending for my own personal sake and to make things easier on me, and say that he went to Japan to be a hero. He rose through the ranks, became a very powerful hero, much like Mirko, or like across like maybe like the 6th ranked hero, and at this time she was like the 7th ranked hero or something like that, which essentially ended up having them both meet together, and one thing would lead to another, with Mirko and T'Challa eventually having Izuku. I don't know. Let's give him the last name of not T'Challa, but of Mirko, but we actually don't know who it is, or at least I don't know right now because I haven't looked it up. But yeah, he's going to be having that last name. And Izuku's actually going to be raised by his father for the first year that he's a kid, right? Everything's going good. They're both hero parents, and it's all really cool. Nobody's aware of the fact that they're together or like dating or anything like that, but they are. And after a couple of more months, eventually tragedy would strike. T'Challa's father would unfortunately pass away, and because of that, he would actually have to abandon them and return to Wakanda. He would have ended up offering Mirko to go back with him, but we all know how Mirko is. She's absolutely not gonna want to go to Wakanda. She wants to stay, be a hero, beat up more bad guys. Going to Wakanda where she's just gonna have the easy life, that just doesn't work for her. And so they would have a pretty sad goodbye, with Mirko having a huge smile on her face and saying that she might tell the kid about who his dad is someday. And you know, T'Challa would just laugh before then leaving and saying that if she ever needs anything, to call him. And so, for the next following years, Izuku would practically be raised by his mother Mirko, which would lead to Izuku having a lot more of a Mirko personality, a lot more confidence, and a huge lust for battle. Something our beloved Izuku has absolutely no idea about. But yeah, that's pretty much how life would go for Izuku, and this means that he doesn't actually end up meeting Bakugo during his early years because of the fact that I'm pretty sure Mirko's not going to be middle class level. She's going to be up there when it comes to like her money. So Izuku's probably going to go to one of the like stuck up schools that Ida and Momo went to, the rich kid schools, and Izuku being there, he would be so much different than the other kids. He would be the Bakugo of the school without the bullying. Just being the cool guy that always, you know, does things so cool. And it's like, at the beginning, people would be like, what? You got a rabbit quirk? Like, that's lame. But anytime that anybody would say something to Deku that would remotely make him angry or seem like they're making fun of him, Deku would just straight up beat them up badly. And it's like, dude, he has some very powerful quirks. I mean, not quirks, but very powerful legs, because of the fact that, you know, his quirk is a rabbit-based quirk, right? But it's in a evolved version of his mother's due to the quirk singularity theory, as quirks get stronger the more that they're passed on. So Izuku has an even more powerful version of Mirko's quirk, and Izuku not only just does have the quirk, but he's actually been trained with her fighting style since he could even remember. Since the dude could stand, she was practically teaching him how to fight, and even though he knows how to fight with his legs, something that she would have taught him that's sort of interesting is how to fight with his hands, actually putting him in certain classes to actually learn how to use his fists a lot better, and teaching him his father's fighting style when it comes to like using scratches and stuff like that, and like punches and stuff. So Izuku is sort of a hybrid of, you know, his mother and his father, but much more his mother, obviously. Eventually, this would end up leading Izuku down a path of him deciding to become a hero, and eventually, after all would be said and done and a bunch of years would pass, Izuku would finally find himself at the UA entrance exam, where Izuku would show up, get great scores on the test, and eventually show off his goods during the robot section of the test. Izuku starts everything off by immediately blitzing in at a robot using his legs and just kicking the head straight off, followed by spinning mid-air, grabbing the head and tossing it at another robot, which causes it to turn towards Izuku as the dude literally rushes towards it, kicking it in the chest, sending it flying into a building, as Deku would just run around the battlefield as fast as he possibly can and just start kicking robot after robot after robot, destroying as much as he could possibly do, until eventually we would hear rumbling in the distance, followed by a bunch of people beginning to run away from the 0 pointer. And it would be in this moment that Izuku would know that it's his time to shine. Looking up at the 0 pointer, he would think to himself that he has to fight that thing. There's no way his mom's gonna be proud of him if he doesn't take that thing down. And so Izuku would begin rushing at it, wanting to actually fight this thing, not knowing if he could, but taking the chance. As he would then stride, Izuku would actually hear the voice of a girl nearby screaming for help. So Izuku immediately turns and rushes straight towards her, thinking to himself, what? I'm supposed to fight this thing, but its body, it just moves. And Izuku grabs onto Uraraka as he saves her from the robot, and immediately after this, the test would be over, as Izuku would go on to yell some dumb stuff out into the open, and eventually after this, Izuku would make his way home, as he would arrive and see a letter on the fridge that says, left you some food in the microwave, and so he would go over there to check, being like, there's no way she cooked for me, before then seeing another letter that says, come on kid, you really think I cooked? Just order something, as Izuku would let out a laugh and then begin to order himself something off of Uber Eats, going on to order, what should my boy order? Something good. Let's do Payway. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but it's like Panda Express, but better, because the chicken's actually, you know, chicken, and the sauce, oof, let me tell you guys, it is good. So if you guys have one of those in your area, go check it out. Get the orange chicken plate. Trust me, you will love it. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with your taste buds. But moving on, Izuku eventually after this would have to wait for approximately about 1 week before the school would even tell him anything about what happened. And during that week, let's just say that it would be very, very, very eventful, because during this week, eventually one day his mother would end up coming home a lot sooner than he had actually expected her, as she would then just sit down, look at him, and say that she has some news to lay down on him, throwing her leg on top of the other as she would grab a drink and just begin to drink up, you know what I mean? As she would look at him and say, look kid, I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat things. Your father's dead. And from here, Deku would say, my dad? What about it? Why should I care? And she would go on to say, well, you should care because unfortunately for you, you're gonna have to go visit Wakanda. And I'm gonna have to go with you, taking a break for a couple of days. As Izuku looking at his mother would be like, are you kidding me? Like, we're going to what even is that? And he would look it up before then finding out that that place is just some poor nation. Izuku would begin getting angry as eventually, the people from Wakanda would arrive at Izuku's door and take him there. As Izuku would go on to discover that Wakanda is not all that it looks to be, ending up arriving on the throne room as everybody would have a conversation, and Izuku would just look around at all of them being like, I don't belong here. I don't even look like you guys. I'm Blasian. And then he would realize, oh. As from here, Izuku goes on to question who his dad even was, with him looking at his mom and his mom saying, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, your dad was Black Panther, or, his real name, T'Challa. And Izuku would be like, what? You mean to tell me my dad was that cool hero? And she would say, yeah, he was a cool hero. Not as cool as me though. As from here, Izuku and her go on to have a laugh, and everybody's watching them would just be like, can you guys be serious for one moment? Before Izuku would just walk in front of all of them and go, nah, not my style. Look, if you guys want me to be king because my dad died, I don't really feel like doing it, unless there's something that comes with being the king. As suddenly, his aunt would go on to say that she loves this kid. As from here, his grandmother would actually go over towards Izuku before hugging him and saying that they need a king, and he's the only one able to do this, saying that she knows it's hard, but he has to do it. Wakanda needs a leader. Izuku says, I don't want to become a leader. What does that entail? Do I just have to sit here and give up my dreams of becoming a hero? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna sit here on some throne room. Give me something. Tell me why I should become king. Before then, his aunt would go on to say that he could have the powers of the Black Panther, and Izuku's ears immediately perk up as he would look towards her and be like, wait, are you serious? And she just goes on to say, yeah, let me show you. Before then going on to pretty much just abandon the whole place, with all the elders looking at him being like, this kid cannot be the leader. As from here, Izuku just points his hand up and is all like, yeah, you're right, I can't be one. One of you guys should take the spot and I'll take those powers. How's that sound? As from here, Izuku would then just go on to go to the room and be absolutely flabbergasted by all the technology that he would see, but the coolest thing would be the necklace that Izuku would be given of the Panther's actual suit. Izuku would put it on and immediately feel like he just looks so cool. She would show him all the tech upgrades, the claws and things of that nature, and Izuku would say that he needs this now, saying that he'll become king for this thing. As from here, she would go on to explain that that's not it. He's even going to be given powers, the powers of the Black Panther. As from here, Izuku would become king and would go on to receive the powers of the Black Panther. As once this would be done, Izuku would then go on to say that yeah, he's leaving now. As everybody would look at him and say that he can't just leave, he's the king. And he would say, listen to me, I'm the king. You're going to do what I say. And what I say is that I'm going to go off, play hero, and somebody's going to warm up my seat while I come back. I'm not gonna sit here in some throne room being bored every day, but if you need me, call me and I'll come. But if not, leave me alone, and my auntie here can actually take care of the Wakandan duties. As from here, he would go on to say to give her the powers of the Black Panther, and she would become the Black Panther, with him basically saying that there can be two now. As he would go on to explain that he's not going to be here, she can take his place, and he's going to go off and become a hero. He doesn't care about being a prince or a king, he just wants to fight bad guys. And so, he would straight up just leave, with his mother having a huge smile on her face, as they would end up returning back to Japan, as Izuku would basically barely arrive right on time. That same morning, Izuku would actually have classes, and so he would arrive a couple of hours late, meaning Izuku would have completely missed the quirk apprehension test. And so Aizawa would actually be considering expelling Izuku for not even showing up on the first day. But luckily for him, his mother is pro hero Mirko, and she was absolutely not letting that happen. And so Izuku would actually go and actually take the quirk apprehension test all by himself, with Aizawa watching him and trying to look cool, you know, like trying to intimidate him, telling him that he better be on time. As Izuku would say, careful, you don't want to talk to a prince like that. As from here, he would then go on to do every single one of the tests, blowing them out of the water with his newfound Black Panther enhanced rabbit quirk. Now Izuku's a panther rabbit, as weird as that sounds. But Izuku would blow every single test out of the water, and I'm not even going to tell you guys what he gets, because I'm going to save that for later. But just know, Izuku definitely doesn't get expelled. And so, 2 days would pass of school, as eventually one day after all their classes would be done, they would be sitting in the room when suddenly, All Might would come busting through the door going, I am here, coming in like a normal person, going on to explain his role in the school, and basically telling everybody that he's going to be their pro hero course instructor. And so everybody would begin to be terrified, being like, are you going to expel us too? And he's all like, oh no, that's Aizawa's thing. I'm here to mold you into the perfect heroes. But before that, you gotta look like pros. As he would click a button revealing everyone's costumes, and we would eventually get the My Hero song in the background as everybody would come out looking really cool. But the person that would look the coolest would be Izuku, coming out with this awesome like just necklace and like just his normal clothes underneath. but in an instant, Izuku, looking towards everybody who would begin asking him where his costume is, would say it's right here, as his costume would immediately just appear on his body, and Izuku would go on to show everybody just how cool his costume looks, with everybody being like, dude, there is no way, that is so cool. Kirishima would be like, dude, that's manly. And eventually we would get the section where everybody has to choose who exactly they're going to be going up against. And unfortunately for Bakugo, he's going to be being faced up against Izuku. Somebody who's not going to sit there and just take Bakugo's trash talk, take his attitude, or any of those things. And as you could imagine, Bakugo's going to have an attitude. He's going to stare Deku down in a mean way, being bratty, just thinking that he's the best of everything and wanting to crush him, telling him that he has no prayer in the world to save him from him, and just things along that nature, just the things that you would expect Bakugo to say. This would light a fire within Izuku, and he would stay quiet until he finally got the moment to lay his hands on Bakugo, as eventually Izuku and Uraraka would make their way towards the building, as what would pretty much end up going down is Izuku would tell Uraraka to stay behind on the first floor and he'll handle this. That blonde Pomeranian is going to need to be taught a lesson, as eventually you could just hear Bakugo shooting through the building going, "Where are you, you damn nerd?" As Izuku, finally hearing this, his senses would snap, and in an instant, as Bakugo comes in to throw a right punch at Izuku, Deku would grab it before slamming him on the ground and actually proceeding to smash apart that gauntlet that he has on his arm. And so Bakugo would get up slowly with an angry expression, going on to say that Izuku was gonna pay for that, as Deku would just hold his hand out and do the come here motion. Bakugo would rush back in, but Deku would dodge every single one of his blows, until eventually one of Bakugo's explosions would actually end up hitting Deku in the face and would actually cause his suit to turn purple. Eventually he would throw another one, causing more of it to turn purple, and Izuku would just be smirking underneath the mask, going that this is gonna be fun. As from here, Bakugo would land attack after attack after attack, and Izuku would just have a huge grin on his face, until eventually he would form the Wakandan pose thing, and then he would release it, as Bakugo would be sent flying through the room. But unluckily for Izuku, this meant that Bakugo had finally charged up his gauntlet, and so he would go on to pull the pin towards Izuku, as a huge explosion would go off through the room, but Deku did not care. He straight up lunged into the explosion, not caring about anything. And as he did that, his entire suit became purple, but he would reach back his arm and go on to scratch Bakugo square in the face, leaving a scar, as instantly he would form the pose of the Wakandans, release it point blank in Bakugo's face, and this would send him flying out of the building as he would crash onto the ground and he would be knocked completely unconscious. Following this, he goes on to use his headpiece, going on to try to call Uraraka, but it would be broken due to the explosion. And so he would make his way back down, as Uraraka would be worried about him, asking what happened, and Izuku says that he took out the trash. As from here, they would make their way towards Ida's room, with Uraraka serving as a distraction, and Izuku using his Black Panther suit to actually turn invisible, because yup, I'm gonna be giving him that ability, because come on now, their little spaceships are able to turn invisible, why can't he do that? So his suit turns him invisible, and he would touch onto the bomb, as he would finally reveal that he was there the whole time, and Ida would be like, "How did you get there, you hero?" Acting like a villain still, before All Might would just go, "Hero team wins!" Before then going on to check up on Bakugo immediately and asking Deku if he's okay after that explosion, going on to actually scold Bakugo, because he's the one who took it too far, not Izuku. He started it, so even though he would have a couple choice words for Deku, he wouldn't have almost anything in comparison to what he would go on to say to Bakugo, saying that if that had been any other student, that could have killed them. And Bakugo would just be angry, looking at Deku, being like, "How dare you, beat me like that?" With going home just angrily, deciding that he's gonna make sure to crush that kid someday. And so class would continue, as everybody would go on to take their own hero versus villains test, and after all would be said and done, the students would finally find themselves in class the next day, as they would be handed out permission slips by All Might, who tells them to sign these from their parents or their guardians and to return, as they're going to be going to the USJ, with everybody being extremely excited, being like, "What? The USJ? Are you serious?" And even Izuku would be a little happy about this, knowing what this actually is, not Universal Japan Studios, but the something unforeseen simulation training joint, USJE, unforeseen joint, or I don't know, but whatever. Point is, Izuku knows what's going to happen because his mother Mirko would have definitely told him. And so what we would actually get is a little bit of a cool scene in which Deku finally comes home and Mirko would say, "Hey kid, you finally here?" With Izuku saying, "Yeah, ma." As from here, she would go on to say, "Are you finally going to go to the USJ?" With Deku going on to show her the permission slip and her telling him to make sure to crush every other kid in these tests. As from here, Deku would smirk and Mirko would look at her kid before then saying, "All right, then go get some sleep. You're going to need it." And so Deku would get some sleep before then returning the next day, having a normal day of class, followed by 2 more, I want to say, because, you know, teachers usually give us like 2 to 3 days to turn in permission slips, usually actually like a week, but here I'm going to say 2 to 3 days. And so eventually we would find ourselves with Izuku and everybody else on the USJ bus. Finally, they would end up unloading everything, and eventually they would find themselves in front of the Hero 13. She would then go on to explain how the USJ works, going on to explain how quirks are super dangerous and things along those notions, until eventually we would finally get something cool happen. A purple mist would appear in the center of everything, and Izuku's senses were telling him to attack, and so before Kurogiri could even get a word out, Deku would lunge at it saying, "Get lost!"